Good afternoon. We're back with another episode of the Lord of the Rings LCG Progression Series. This time a card review of the Heirs of Numenor expansion. An expansion which I found to be underwhelming in terms of the cards. I kind of like Siege and Battle questing as concepts, so the quests are cool, but albeit difficult and somewhat janky to build decks for. But the cards I found a little underwhelming, but let's get in and I'll tell you why I think so. First hero, Baragond. 10 threat, 0144 health sentinel. Lower the cost to play weapon and armor attachments on Baragond by 2. He is presenting as a defensive hero. However, as a defensive hero, my metric for defensive heroes is how many attacks can they take from a troll, which does 6 damage, or Balrog, which does 6. Frodo can tank 1 attack every turn, as long as you have threat to pay for it. A hero so Frodo's an excellent defending hero. A hero like Elrond or Dane can take 1 attack. It's okay. It's better than not having any. And this hero can take 1 attack. 1 attack from a troll at 6 attack. The second one will kill him. And therefore he is an okay hero at defending, and considering all he can do is defend effectively, that is not good. However, there's a new concept in this expansion called siege tanking, where you use shields to quest instead of questing power. And in siege questing, he will quest for 4, and that is exceptional. That's AoN level of exceptional. So, in siege questing, this is a great hero. Otherwise, he's not very good. His ability, lower the cost to play weapon and armor attachments on Baragond by 2, is nice. I don't think that makes him good, given the weapon and armor attachments that are currently available. That may change in the future, but as of this moment, I don't think he is a good defending hero, but he is a great hero in siege questing. Siege questing. So we'll play him in the siege questing decks. Boromir, 11 threat, 132, 5 health, the same as his other version. While Boromir has at least 1 resource in his resource pool, Gondor allies get +1 attack. Okay, so 132 isn't enough to warrant inclusion in a deck on its own. So if you play him, you're playing him for his ability. His other version could ready up once per phase at a very low cost of 1 threat. That was phenomenal. Is this version better than that? He is presenting as a hero who's going to fill your attacking role. He's good at that if he's with a Gondor ally. The problem, and this problem was present with the dwarves as well, with the dwarves, every card was understated for its cost, because there was an assumption you'd be playing it with Dane that increased the stats. Boromir's ability would be great if there were Gondor allies who were properly statted and then he made them better. But I suspect it's going to be like, you know how sometimes companies do a sale where they'll start a product out higher than the retail value. Like if a competing company would sell a t-shirt for 4, this unscrupulous company will sell theirs for 6 and then immediately put it on sale for 4, just so they can mark it as a sale, but it's not really a sale. So Boromir's ability is good, but not if they understat every Gondor ally in attack to compensate for that. Then you're just getting back to break even with his stat, which is kind of what Dane does. And dwarves were fun, but I found them a little underpowered in solo play. Now in multiplayer, they're pretty good, very strong. But Gondor doesn't even have allies so far that are close to being statted properly. And so I don't see this version of Boromir, being powerful until that's the case. If you're going to have him only be good with allies, then the allies need to be close to good on their own, and they're just not. Most of them. Unless there's allies that I'm not thinking about, which is possible. But there aren't any in this expansion. Let me check which Gondor allies are available, actually. Okay, so I just made a quick list of all the currently available Gondor cards, Gondor allies, including those that were released with this set. So let's just take a look at them and see if Boromir has any good options for allies to buff. The Citadel Custodian is horribly overcosted for his stats. You play him for his ability, which is lower the cost to play by 1 for each Gondor ally in play. So he's only good if you're playing a lot of Gondor allies. You really need to have like 3 out. When is that ever going to happen? Erindrider, 1 cost 0,002. So 1 cost for 1 attack is okay when he generates a resource. So we can say that's alright. Guard of the Citadel would be 2 cost for 2 attack. That's alright. Euthelian Tracker would be 2 cost for 2 attack. That card is in this set, right? That's alright. Warden of Healing would be 2 cost for 1 attack. You'd be playing him for healing, not for the attacks. He doesn't really improve Warden of Healing stats, but if you're already playing him for healing, he's okay. Envoy of Pilar gear, 2 cost for 2 attack. That's alright. Yeah, and he has a resource generation mechanic. Defender of Ramos, 2 cost for 2 attack, and you also get 4 shields. That's actually good, especially in siege questing. Defender of Ramos, that's good, and Boromir makes him better. And Envoy of Pilar, or I already said that one. Gondorian Spearman, 2 cost for 2 attack, and he deals a damage to attackers. So we have 2 cards I still wouldn't play, and then Guard of the Citadel, and then Spearman. From different spheres, we have Leadership and Tactics, and then 3 cards that we'll talk about in a moment. 4 cards. None of these are good, except Defender of Ramos before Boromir. So they all need Boromir to be good, which is like a false sale to me. This was the case for dwarves too, up until very recently. The Hobbit box included Keely and Feely, and those cards are so good with Dane that they're just good, not being understated and then compensated for. And I think Longbeard Elder is pretty good too. But before that, all the dwarves were kind of understated to compensate for Dane, which is, I don't like that. And I think these guys are too, to compensate for Boromir. Is Boromir worth playing with these guys? Like, play some kind of resource generation thing where you run Boromir, Erindriders, Envoys of Pelargir, and then Defender of Ramos is what I think you would do. Is that good? For battle questing? I don't hate the concept. Yeah, I don't hate it. He makes Baragond better too if you run him. Might try it. I'll give it a try. Already recorded a battle of, the first quest of the Heirs of Numenor. Already recorded that win with a battle questing deck using the other version of Boromir, but I may build a deck around this version and see what happens. Give it a try anyway. If it's good, I'll make another video of it. I think it'd be interesting at least. So, we'll come back to Boromir, but as of right now, I think we need one more really good Gondor ally besides Defender of Ramos. One more really good Gondor ally. Is there a third Gondor hero? Let me check. Okay, so there's some options for the third Gondor hero. You could run Prince Imrahil, and Boromir actually does make him good. Or no, sorry. Why am I looking at heroes at all? Boromir only affects allies. Oh, that's... Okay, so scratch that. You do need another good ally that's good in its own right that Boromir can then buff. I think at least one more. But we'll give this Boromir a shot with run the Erindriders, the Envoy of Pilar, Defender of Ramos. I don't think Athelian Tracker is worth running. It's lore also. But I'll give it a shot, and if it's got any potential at all, I'll make some videos of how it does in the quest. At least the Heirs of Numenor quest. I doubt it'll be much good after that. But we'll see. I really wish that would work on heroes too. It probably should. I think he's a little underpowered, only working on allies. Anyway, Erindrider 10002. Exhaust Erindrider to move one resource from the resource pool of a hero you control to another hero's resource pool. He's bad without Boromir. Doesn't do anything, and that ability doesn't do enough to justify it. With Boromir, at least he does something. 1 damage. He can quest, at least. So, yeah, he's understated, I think, because of Boromir. And, I don't like cards that are understated in to compensate for a hero's buff like this. I suppose you can use him to make sure Boromir always has a resource. That might have some use. Usually, though, I think you're going to be wanting to exhaust him to quest or attack, so I don't know that you'd get a lot of use out of that. Citadel Custodian. 5 cost 1013. Obviously, he's way overcosted for his stats, so you have to have the allies in play to make him worth it. He'd be good if there's 4 allies in play. He's not great with 3, so that's an unlikely situation. That makes this a very niche card, unless more cards come out that let you get out Gondor allies very quickly. Very niche card. Too pricey. Mutual Accord. Until the end of the phase, each Gondor card gains Rohan, and each Rohan card gains Gondor. So that's a way to play Rohan cards and then give them +1 attack for a turn with Boromir. Maybe vice versa in the future, but I think that's its primary use now. So you could run like, okay, so only allies are going to get Boromir's buff, but you could run like Escort from Edoras and then like give it an attack power or something. How many other Rohan cards would you want to run that would benefit? This is probably too niche. I don't think you're going to run Escort from Edoras in these decks because it's questing power and we need battle power or siege power, so the Rohan cards are good at questing. If you're playing Rohan cards in a siege or battle deck, there's a few of them that attack okay or defend okay, but generally I think you'd be playing them off roll and then trying to shoehorn them into the role you want them to do, which is maybe cool from like a storytelling or thematic way, but not in a good deck, I don't think, at this time. So we'll assume this is a fun card for thematic players, which is awesome to play that way. But I evaluate cards as if I'm building a deck to defeat the very hardest quests currently in the game. And this is not a card you would play in such a deck. Wealth of Gondor, 0 cost. Choose a Gondor hero, add 1 resource. This is basically a cycle card. 1 resource for 0 cost costs you a card. It's not good if you don't have card draw. It's bad late game. It's okay early, but it's bad late game and it'll drain your cards fast, and so it's not good without card draw, and it's off the card draw sphere. So I probably won't play this. Defender of Ramos. 2 costs, 0141. It's great as a defender. It's awesome in a siege deck, siege questing deck. But even in a non-siege questing deck, there was that eagle from Hunt for Gollum that was like 2014, I think, and might have even been 2004. And you had to pay a card to keep that around after a defense. This is just a straight up upgrade. It's good. I'd put this. So shields can be a little bit tricky to evaluate on an ally, but consider it this way. if you didn't have him on the table, you'd likely be defending whatever attack this guy would have taken with one of your heroes. So this frees up your hero to do something else, quest or attack. So this could easily read attack power 3 or questing power 3 in a situation where an ally, where you have a defense you need to make. It's not good. Shields aren't good in a situation where you have nothing for him to do. It's just idle. I'd like it if it had 1 questing power. It does have 1 attack for battle questing. But I would put this in any deck with tactics hero where there's any likelihood that you will be attacked a reasonable amount. It's good. It's not essential, except maybe for siege questing. But if you're thinking of like, do I need to buy this expansion? What new cool strategies will I unlock? So far, Baragond is going to be good in Siege, and this is going to be good in Siege, but if you're not facing Siege quests, I don't think you need this expansion so far, based on what I've seen. Behind Strong Walls, ready a defending Gondor character. That character gets +1, so you can have a Gondor character take another attack. There's only a few that can do that. Defender of Ramos is one. Heroes are another, if you want them to defend multiple attacks. This is pretty niche. There's only going to be a couple of situations where you want to defend multiple attacks with a Gondor character. In that situation, action advantage is good. But it's going to sit in your hand a lot, which makes it a niche card. I don't like niche cards because they're swingy. They're great when they work, and they're bad when they don't work. And that makes them swingy and introduces luck into the game. And generally, we want to be removing luck from the game to achieve efficient victories with as high a win rate as possible. Spear of the Citadel. 2 cost attached to a tactics character. Restricted limit 1 per character. After attached character is declared as a defender, deal 1 damage to the attacking enemy. Okay, so it's free on Baragond. And it gives them the ability to deal 1 damage to each attacking enemy. 1 damage per turn if you're getting attacked a lot. How often? Okay, so the deck I ran for the battle questing quest in the first quest of Heirs of Numenor had Bjorn, and this would have almost never been useful because 1 damage rarely makes the difference between killing an enemy and not killing him. So it's not that 1 damage isn't nice per turn. I suppose you could combo it with like Thalon. If you built a deck around this, or if you were playing a deck that already had some direct damage, like with Thalon. Like he's dealing 1 off the top when they're coming out of the encounter deck, and then you're having him run into the spear from Baragond. That could be good. I think you need this to combo with other damage cards, though, to be good. Yep. Damrod, 4 cost, 1, 2, 2, 2 health. Discard Damrod from play to lower your threat by 1 for each enemy in the staging area. What? Terrible in solo play. You can do 2 attack or 2 shields. That's undercosted. So you play him for the ability, and the ability is terrible in solo play. You're going to discard a 2 attack, 2 shields character that you paid 4 for to decrease your threat by maybe 1 or 2. Awful. He is Gondor. I forgot to include him on my list. I thought he was Rohan since he was in Spirit. Boromir doesn't make him good, though. He's still understated even with Boromir. And that ability is an odd one. That's an odd one. I don't know why you would want to do that. I guess, yeah. So there's some emergency situations where you're at 49 or something, but very, very, very niche card. to make it good. Light the beacons. 5 cost. All characters get +2 shields and do not exhaust to defend until the end of the round. Alright, well, let's think about how you would use this card to its fullest advantage. You have a few characters on the table, you're facing a lot of attacks, and you have 5 spirit resources to spare. If you had 5 spirit resources to spare and you were going to face a lot of attacks, play more cards from your hand to deal with those attacks. The cards from your hand aren't going to be temporary. This will be temporary. So you would only do this in a situation where you've got a lot of characters on the table, you're facing a lot of attacks, you have 5 spirit resources, and you don't have cards in hand that will be helpful to use those resources on. That will provide a permanent effect. That is very, very niche. Very niche. I don't think you'd get much use out of that if you included it in a deck, even if you built your deck around it. Very niche card. A Watchful Piece. After a location worth no victory points leaves play as an explored location, return it to the top of the encounter deck. Alright, that's okay if a minor location just got explored and you wanted to come back because it was so minor that you were happy to see it. But that doesn't happen that much. Like maybe once per game, maybe. And you'd have to have this in hand when it happened. And have a resource to pay for it, so it's very niche and therefore very swingy. Very, very niche. Both of these are very, very niche. Actually, all 3 of these. They're like so niche, they're like... They're thinking like, let's make a card for like a 1 in 50 situation. Like 1 in 50 games this card will be good. Yeah. Maybe I'm being too hard on them. Some cards exist only to have fun with, and that's fine. I've seen that in every card game I've played. And that's great. I have 0 issue with it. So perhaps those are just meant as fun cards. Blood of Numenor. Attached to a Gondor or Dunedain hero, spend 1 resource from attached hero's resource pool to give attached hero +1 shields for each resource in its resource pool until the end of the phase. So it's intended to give you a use for Steward of Gondor when it's built up a bunch of resources and you don't have anything left to play it with. If that's the case consistently, better deck design is in order with more card draw. So that means its ideal usage in a well-designed deck is probably going to be rare. And in this series of quests, there seem to be a lot of cards that deplete your resources. So this is going to be yet another card whose usage is so uncommon. The ideal usage scenario is so uncommon that it's very, very niche. All 4 of these spirit cards are that way. So we'll just assume that they're designed as fun cards. Hunter of Lamidon. 2 cost, 1/1/1. Outlands. Can't talk about this card without talking about the Outlands cards that come in the first adventure pack. So we'll put this on hold and come back to it later. It's over-costed for its stats if you don't take the Outland stuff into account. But I think it's good with Outlands. And so we'll talk about it later. Ithilien Tracker, 2/0/1/0, 3 health. Very understated. With Boromir, the 2 attack is okay. Exhaust Ithilien Tracker to lower the threat of the next enemy added to the staging area to 0 until the end of the phase. Well, in solo play, a lot of the time that's going to do nothing because you don't always get an enemy in the staging area in the solo phase, and so you'd exhaust him in the solo game, so you'd exhaust him for nothing. Bad in solo. In multiplayer, so it would read like 2 cost to reduce 2 threat. I think you'd have to use it at least twice, at least 2 turns to make it good. I think it might be usable in a 3 or 4 player game in like a Boromir deck or something. Usable, but only if you get it out early. And in 4 player games, I find threat is less of an issue. Because you got more players with ways to reduce it, so I think this is probably overshadowed by other threat reduction methods in 4 player, and it's bad in solo. because a lot of the time it exhausts to do nothing, and if you take the if you're not using the ability, it's way understated. Although with Boromir, in a Boromir deck, would you play it just for its 2 attack, like for battle questing? Maybe. Especially if there's other Gondor synergy later, but I don't think there is. Looking ahead, I don't think there is, so... if for some reason you're running lore, I don't know if lore is the thing to run with Gondor. Oh, Hunter of Lamidon is Gondor as well. I missed that. He's okay with Boromir. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you run both of these guys. They're not very good. Even with Boromir. I don't think I would go with lore as one of my spheres in my Boromir deck, so I probably won't play those except for Hunter of Lamidon with the Outlands deck. Master of Lore, 3 cost, 1011 health, exhaust to name a card type. Lower the cost for you to play the next lore card of that type by 1 until the end of the phase. So he's a cost reduction card that needs 2 uses to get to a spot where he's okay. 3 uses would be good. So you need to play it early, which means it's a bad card to draw late. You need to play it, or you need to get it out early, but you can't play it early because it's 3 costs, so it's not a good card. It would clog up your hand if you kept it for a couple of turns, and if you didn't keep it, you'd probably draw it too late to get the use out of it that you need to. And you have to have a lore card to play every turn. So let's say you kept this in your opening hand. You saved up for 2 turns and you played it. Are you always going to have a 2-cost lore card to play next turn to take advantage of this? It's got to be used 3 times to make it good. I don't know. It's too. I think it's too niche, too slow. Not too niche, but too slow to work. It is Gondor, but that doesn't really help that much when it's a 0 attack. So, too slow. Ranger Spikes, 2 costs to play into the staging area. If unattached, attach to the next eligible enemy that enters the staging area. Players do not make engagement checks against attached enemy, and attached enemy gets -2 threat. Great card. Great card. I'd put it in every lore deck that I could find a spot for it. That's great. Just sits there until an enemy comes along, and then they're basically disabled. You can ignore them forever. There's a few situations where you wouldn't want to. That would be unfortunate, but generally, great card. I'd stick it in every deck where I'm running lore. There aren't a lot of lore decks where I might not run it in my Elrond deck because that's so ally heavy. But I think that is a great card in many lore decks. Not an essential card, though. Not one to buy the expansion for. We haven't seen one of those yet. Unless you need to do siege questing, in which case Baragond is good. But other than that, this is an underwhelming expansion. Unless Hunter of Lamidon is essential for Outlands. Envoy of Pilar, 2 cost, 1101. After Envoy enters play, add 1 resource to a Gondor or Noble Hero's resource pool. So he actually only costs 1, and you get 2 attack for your 1 if you're playing Boromir. 1 attack for 1 cost and 1 questing is good. So there's your 2 pretty good Gondor allies. Is that enough for a Boromir deck? We'll see. I'll try it and we'll see. Even so, this will be like a fun concept to experiment with, but I really don't think you should run out and buy this expansion expecting that it'll be a big power upgrade or better than anything else. But unless you need Baragond for future things, for shield questing, siege questing, and Boromir might be good for battle questing if more allies come out that are good. Like 2 is okay, 3 would be great, and we'll see if it happens or not. But I'll try it out, and we'll see how it goes. Overall, a little underwhelming. Especially considering we just saw the first box of the Hobbit Saga, Overhill and Underhill, and that was a great box. Great cards in that. This is a little underwhelming. Thanks for watching.